Hey friends, my name is Jake. Welcome to Canadian Cutting Edge, and we've got a knife by Maxace today. Now, if you're familiar with Maxace, Maxace makes some high-end knives, or fairly high-end knives. I'm not talking thousands of dollars, but hundreds of dollars retail price for their knives. Their Kestrel's been out for a while, and we're looking at their KESTREL-K. This is the budget version of the Kestrel that they've made for the rest of us, the hundreds and thousands and millions of guys, that live paycheck to paycheck, and, we don't have a lot of excess money, but we like nice things. Is this a nice thing? We're going to take a look at it. It's a front flipper. It's a full-size knife, G10 liner lock. Its big brother, well, there was the Kestrel, and then there's the Kestrel 2.0. At White Mountain Knives, those knives start at $128 US. $134, $168, $205, and then they've got this extra exclusive one, $308, and those things are sweet. They're all made with M390 and then various handle packages, frame locks. We've got a liner lock. We've got a plain edge here. Theirs is a recurve. So this is the knife that's a little more straightforward, and it'll fit your budget. So there it is. It's a pretty good size knife. It's basically the size of an Ontario Rat 1 minus this little forward choil area. Other than that, very much the same. You got about 1/4 of an inch more cutting edge, but the grip area in the hand, for the main grip area, very much the same. Very similar thickness. It's in a lot of ways, the size of a Rat 1. What do we have for a blade here? It's actually a pretty nice looking blade. We've got a straight back. It's not perfectly a straight back. It is a tiniest bit of a drop point on here, but basically we're going to call it a straight back. We've got a swedge along most of the length of the knife, a flat grind that comes up, 3/4 of the way to the spine, so it's not a full flat grind. And it's got a stonewash treatment on there. A very nice stonewash treatment. It's my favorite treatment, and this stonewash is, just the way I like it, so I'm happy with that. Badging here on the blade, well, no, just on the flat up here it says KESTREL-K, but when you close the knife, you see it says K110 up there. Yes, this is K110 steel, which is basically D2 steel, and you take that for what it's worth. I'm not that big of a fan of a D2, at least on pocket knives. I love it on fixed blades. And that's all the badging that's on the blade. Their sharpener's choil, I really like this, except for it's not quite big enough. They missed it, just like so many companies missed it. The plunge line ends, and then the blade continues, and it starts going up the plunge a little bit when the sharpener's choil starts. But with how far back into the blade this sharpener's choil goes, you're not going to really make a mess of things here and make it look ugly by sharpening to the heel. But still, the sharpener's choil doesn't extend past the end of the plunge into the main bevel. It's actually really hard to see. It's very close, but not quite right. How well does this blade perform in terms of cutting and stuff? It's actually pretty good. It's very thin behind the grind. Well, not very, fairly thin behind the grind. And with this blade shape, and your handle gives you a solid grip, it's good for slicing and cutting, and okay for piercing as well. You don't have a lot of a guard here to protect you when you pierce into things, but this finger choil here does give you a little bit of protection, so there's that. The handle is flat slab G10. We've got a T8 screw back here to hold it together. And then we've got the pivot pin with the Maxace logo right there. So I like that. Just the Maxace logo and KESTREL-K, not super dark, but right there. That's it for the badging. Then we've got a slight roundedness to the spine. Very, very little. It's close to a straight back spine. Rounded edges everywhere, which I quite like. I'm very happy with that. It's not just a flat chamfer. It's rounded. So nice bullnosing on there. And then the finger choil, it's got a bit of a chamfer on it and on both sides. And it's actually very comfortable in hand, either hand. Of course, it's more comfortable in the left hand than the right, which most right-handed liner locks simply are. It's just the mechanics of how a hand works, you know, wrapping around there. So that's that. We've got a little bit of, you know, the belly in the handle here. Well, it's not really a belly. It's you know, a recurved or an internal curved section. Very comfortable. At the back of the handle, we've got a protrusion with a big lanyard hole in there. I believe this is aluminum. It's not magnetic. It only makes sense that it's aluminum at the price point for this knife. You got lots of room for a lanyard in there. Quite nice. I like it. I'm very happy with that. And then on this side, we've got 2 T8 screws holding in the pocket clip. It's a fairly big pocket clip. It's also anodized, and I believe it's aluminum. It's got some good retention on it, and it holds really well. Let's show it going into a pocket. It climbs over a long ways and then goes in. Wants to sit at an angle. It's designed to sit at an angle. So something like that in your pocket. If you've got blue jeans on, it blends in fairly well if you get this blue version. There's a black version of this knife. It's the only 2 colors that you can get. The pocket clip isn't something that gets me excited. It's okay in my opinion. There's no left-hand option for the pocket clip, and the pocket clip's not very deep. You know, you've got a fair bit sticking out of your pocket, but it's certainly very solid and functional that way. So if you don't mind how it looks, the pocket clip's functionality in terms of its edge, its retention, and you know, the force needed to move it around, it's pretty good. It does stick out a little further than I'd prefer. It doesn't get hot in the hand, but it doesn't need to stick out quite that far. So that's that. How about the action on this thing? Well, the action's pretty good. We've got pretty good detent on here. Lockup, it's in a pretty good spot. We've got room for it to wear over. It's not super, but it's pretty good. Blade play, side to side, nothing. Up and down, a tiny, tiny bit of blade play up and down. So they probably ground away a little too much steel off the tang of the blade. Or maybe they ground off some off the liner lock. I don't know, but there's a tiny bit of a space there. The other option is to do the detent fix and make this lock arm have more spring tension that way. That could fix that, but that might make the detent way too strong. So yeah, who knows. Alignment, pretty good. Pretty much right down the middle. I like that. You know, overall, pretty good smooth action. We'll take a look at the ball bearings inside there in just a little while. The action's fairly smooth. The alignment, it's right down the middle. And then we've got this flipper. The front flipper arm sticks out a long ways. Now, this dented in section up here, that comes back and meets the stop pin right there. So it stops on the stop pin for opening. But that's a lot sticking out. Now, I'm still recovering from that cut right here. It was actually fairly deep, about 3/16 of an inch in. I just about came out the other side, and that's why the skin there is kind of dead and not very happy, and it doesn't look very good, but that's still a bit tender. So, you know, that's right where I would usually push off on to flip the knife open, and I have to do it with my left hand. Now, for some reason, even though I grew up left-handed, I'm not as good using front flippers with my left hand as I am with my right. So that's why I'm helping out sometimes. But it is a pretty good one. Let's just try it doing it a little bit wrong. See, there you go. It opens up really well. The detent is quite good on this knife. It's quite dialed in. And it does look a whole lot better. The action's a whole lot better if I didn't have that cut right there. So you're going to have to just trust me on that. But some people might not like how far that sticks out. Other people are going to love how far that sticks out because you don't have to try as hard to open it up. It might be good for learning how to open a front flipper. Got a little bit of jimping here. I didn't mention that before. I do wish that that jimping went all the way up to where the swedge starts. That would have been appreciated, at least by me, because I tend to have my thumb right about there quite often, you know, when I'm doing hard cutting, and not back here. You know, having it back here kind of, you know, pulls my thumb in. It makes this a little uncomfortable. It's more comfortable right there instead of pulled back. So I'm sure some of you know exactly what I'm saying. So that is how the knife looks. Balance point, I forgot about showing you that right there. almost off camera, right there. I do wish the balance point was right here instead of right here. So that's another thing. There is some skeletonizing here, but not an awful lot. The other thing that we need to cover is the price. What's the price of this knife? Most stores that I found this at, it's $49 US for this knife. Sounds pretty good. I like that price range. White Mountain Knives, though, has got it for $48, but then you can save 10% with coupon code CCE, and that makes this $43.20 US. I think that's a good price for this knife. $43.20 equals about $59 Canadian, although I could not find a store in Canada that sells this knife. There's the complete teardown. You can see the skeletonizing that they've put on both sides. Like I said, they should have done it a bit bigger, in my opinion. And we've got the stainless steel ball bearings in nylon cages. We've got nice screws, good quality stainless steel screws, D-shaped pivot pin, a D-shaped hole right there in the liner. The back spacer here, it's removable, of course. And there's a shoulder on that pin, which means you could put this knife back together again without that back spacer. If you prefer, you know, you can have it looking like that. And since there's alignment pins here, and I seem to be missing one of the alignment pins for this. There should be two. There's only one. You could put that alignment pin in there. And let me put this on here. You could put it together like that, and that's going to hold it just fine. And you can tie off a lanyard on that pin. So those of you who don't like back spacers, don't like stuff sticking out the back, hey, modify it, make it your own. Do it the way you want to do it, right? Other than that, nothing special here. Let's put it back together again and go over all the sizes, dimensions, all those specs. Hopefully you're watching the whole video and didn't leave before when you found out about the lock rock, because it's gone. There's none of that up and down rock. There's no rock up and down now at all. It's perfectly solid. Let's get these specs. The weight to this knife, 125 grams. That's 4.41 ounces. Some people might say that's too heavy. And yeah, it could be lighter if they would have skeletonized it just a bit more. The sharpness from the factory, it wasn't great. 210 bests. So I wish it was better. You know, the grind angles, we'll find out in a second, were okay. It just must have been too coarse of a stone or a belt or something. It just didn't get a super high score. It's not a terrible score, but it wasn't terribly well sharpened. The cutting edge length, 93.2 millimeters, 3.67 inches. The blade length, so tip to the closest spot on the handle, 94.7 millimeters, 3.73 inches. So yeah, 3 3/4 inches. It's a big knife. The thickness of the steel on the blade, 3.13 millimeters, 0.1235, so the tiniest bit under 1/8 of an inch. Blade depth, it's largest right here at the heel of the blade, 25.9 millimeters, 1.02 inches. The thickness behind the grind, remember I was bragging on this, 0.43 millimeters, 16.5 thousandths of an inch. Very, very good. I love that. The grind angles, this side's got an average of 22.25 degrees. This side's got an average of 20.2 degrees. This side was sharpened better. It started at 20 degrees even at the heel and went to 20.4 degrees there. So 0.4 degree of a change, so 20.2 degrees. This side, not so much. It started at 25.4 degrees here and consistently went shallower till it ended at 19.1 degrees, 6.3 degrees of change along the length. You know my song and dance on that one. That sucks. But it's so very common. It's just way too common. Onto the handle. The handle length, including the spacer back here with the lanyard hole, 121.3 millimeters, 4.78 inches. The grip area, it's about 10.5 centimeters, a bit over 4 inches. The thickness of the handle, the G10 slab surfaces, that is, 13.5 millimeters, 0.532 of an inch. So not bad, I don't mind that. The handle depth within the grip area, the widest point is right there, 22.9 millimeters, 0.902 of an inch. When the knife is closed, the widest point is up here, 28.8 millimeters, 1.13 inches, and the total length of this knife from tip to tail, 216 millimeters, 8.5 inches, almost exactly 8.5 inches. Those proportions ain't bad. What are my thoughts? Do I like this knife? Well, yeah, I like this knife. It's big, it's strong. I'm not that big of a fan of K110 steel. K110, for those of you who aren't aware, is basically D2 steel. I like stainless steel on folding knives. I just don't like carbon steel on folding knives. So, it's okay. Not a big deal, not a big problem. I do like the hardware. Nice T8 screws, good quality stainless steel screws, very nicely done. The action's good, the lockup's good. No blade play now that I've put it back together properly. The lock release, it's a little bit, it gets a C for how easy it is to disengage this lock. It's not extremely easy to disengage that lock, but it's not burdensome either. So yeah, that gets a pass. I do like this sharpness choil, although it doesn't come out far enough, but the way it's made, I like that. Really nice stonewash on here. The alignment when it's closed is nice. Good action. I like the lanyard bar back here with the hole, the backspacer, I should say. Quite nice. I like it that way because when you got paracord through there, it doesn't bunch up. It just comes out the back. Nicely done. And the pocket clip, yeah, it's okay. That's this knife. Huge shout out and thank you to my financial supporters. Every month you guys help me out and I appreciate it very, very much. Thank you so much for watching, liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Let us know what you think of this knife. Do you have one? If you got one of the higher end versions, what do you think of that? And remember, cut towards your chum, not your thumb.